This is the There Is Another Way podcast from spencerbruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hello there, boys and girls. Brucey here with this week's There Is Another Way podcast. How are you all doing out there? I hope you are all doing well. I hope you're all getting into the Christmas spirit. Yes, it's that time of year and not long to go now until Christmas, which means if you've followed my advice from the 12-week year, the podcast I did a couple podcasts back, you're probably coming up to that time of year where you are trying to get lots and lots of things finished and wrapped up, no pun intended, before the big day strikes. I know I am. I'm following the 12-week plan. I'm into my final 4 weeks or 4 months of the year, and there is a lot to do, a lot to get done, plus all the other work that needs to be done as well that goes around surrounding Christmas. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about practicing. I've been doing a lot of talking with my students recently about how to practice, when to practice, all these kind of things that go around with practicing and developing at the skill that you're trying to develop. Now, obviously, in my case, a lot of the students I talk to are either guitar students or audio engineering students. So a lot of the focus is towards those two disciplines. But what really struck me was that actually when you break down this practice regime, this practice style, that it actually applies to pretty much any discipline. So I'm going to break that down in today's podcast, and we're going to talk about how to practice, how to get better and develop your skill. But first off, here is a little bit of news. As I just said, it's coming up to Christmas, trying to get a lot of things finished, primarily music related. I've got a lot of music projects, which I kind of hoped would have been finished by now. That was my goal. I seem to be far from the mark, unfortunately. I've learned a lot this year, and I'm going to reflect on that in the first podcast before Christmas, the kind of New Year's podcast, as I always do, reflect back on the year and what has happened. So I'll leave that to them. But regardless to say, I haven't completed everything that I wanted to do, but I am still putting out bits and pieces of music. Kind of concentrating at the moment on getting tracks out from my YouTube videos. So I do demo videos of guitar gear on YouTube, and occasionally, or more and more now, I'm actually writing tracks to demonstrate the piece of equipment, to show the gear in context. As a result of that, I'm actually putting out those pieces of music as individual tracks. And if there are any guitarists listening, you can also download those as backing tracks as well. I've taken out the main guitar part so you can jam along, practice, and have some fun with them. So please do check out the links below to my YouTube channel and to my Bandcamp page, where you can just download these tracks and have a listen, or even have a listen on SoundCloud. I am everywhere in the internet, it would seem. The track that I've just finished is a track called Sympath. Don't know where the name came from exactly. It's not sympathy. I know I've had one or two comments, oh, isn't it sympathy? And you've spelt it wrong. It's not sympath. I kind of typed that word out, and I quite like the way the word looked. Don't know what it means exactly. So it's called Sympath. So take from that what you will. And here is a little clip of it. I've kind of gone here for a fusion of the two styles that I kind of write: guitar, instrumental music, and ambient electronica. And this is a kind of guitar electronica piece. Hope that you enjoyed it. And again, if you want to check it out, please do click the links below. Also, in my news, I've been working on this soundscape project that I am involved with now until the end of May, and I have been developing a massive template. Won't go into too much details here because it is part of a research project, but really excited by the template that I've created and the abilities that it will give it. It's a massive soundscape simulation tool which you can just create at will your own kind of urban soundscape. So that is really, really exciting. And when I can post more about that, I will post more about that because I find it quite exciting. And hopefully you might find it more exciting and maybe even partake in the research. Who knows? On to today's topic. And as I mentioned before, we're going to talk about practicing. I have a lot of students who could all do with practicing a bit more. And to be honest, I could do with practicing a bit more. I try to make practicing a big part of my daily routine because, of course, if I'm telling students this, then I need to practice what I preach. It's not so easy, and it frustrates the hell out of me when I can't even stick to my own rules and guidelines about practicing and improving, because one of my, the biggest things that I want to do with my life really is improve on the guitar. I love the guitar. I'm fascinated by the guitar. The guitar, in terms of learning and what I want to achieve on the guitar, just seems to be limitless at this point. And I really take that as wonderful inspiration, because it seems that the old adage, the more you know, the less you know, is certainly true. And there are the areas that I teach: guitar, audio engineering, soundscape, recording, those areas which, I feel I know a lot. I've been studying them for the last 25 years, if not longer, in terms of music. And literally, when I think I know something, I discover how much more there is to know. And I think that's what really excites me about life. That's what really excites me about learning, is you get to a point and you think you know something and you realize how much more there is to learn. And that, for me, is really exciting. But one of the ways that we get better at that and continue to improve is by, of course, practicing. We need to practice. You can learn something, but learning something, taking the information in, is kind of useless unless you actually put it to the test. Now, if you've ever tried to learn a language, you might understand where I'm coming from here, because you can read a book, you can look at sentences, and you can put sentences together in the foreign language that you're trying to learn. But unless you put them into practice, unless you try them out, unless you use them, you just forget them. And I feel that when my students and myself are learning, for example, from the internet, it is so easy to watch videos and learn lots of great stuff, but then never put it into practice, and then just kind of forget about it. And it becomes this kind of catch-22 situation, because you feel that you don't know anything. So you go back and watch more videos. You never watch the same video, I hasten to add, because actually, and I've ranted about this on numerous YouTube videos, actually you need to stick with a lesson. You need to stick with a lesson for some time for the information to go in. You really need to work through it, rather than, as YouTube allows us to do, and this isn't a criticism of YouTube, it's just the way that we are now, is you watch a lesson on something and then YouTube recommends another 10 lessons, and you just jump in and go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. And at that point, your brain just can't cope with the amount of information that you've just taken in. The brain needs time for the neurons to make connections, for it to join the dots together, so you actually immerse yourself in the learning. One tip in terms of practicing, if you're using external material, is not to try and get through a whole book, not to try and get through 50 YouTube lessons, just to take one and pick it and stick with it for some time. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. If you're trying to grow a business, if you're trying to do sculpture, if you're trying to do photography, if you're trying to be an accountant, if you're trying to do whatever it is, you're trying to write a book, if you're trying to start your own business, then take these lessons on, pick one and stick with it, work through it, really work into it and practice. So that leads me on to how do I practice something? Well, of course, it's going to vary slightly from discipline to discipline, from skill to skill. I'll give you this as a guitar example, but hopefully you will then see how this, or I'll explain how this can be equally applicable to anything that I've just discussed in terms of skills and disciplines, or whatever it might be that you're doing. So my recommendation is, and this is made a lot easier now with modern technology, is you practice something. You decide that you're going to learn a piece of music. First of all, perhaps I would recommend that you break that down into smaller chunks. So 8 bars of music. If you're not into music, and a parallel would be, let's say you're trying to remember some text for a speech, break that text down into sentences or paragraphs and just repeat the sentence. So you're kind of repeating it. So you're going through the mechanical notion. And this is what I refer to as stage 1. It's getting the mechanics right. Work through. So from a guitar piece, it's playing the notes, making sure the notes sound good, making sure the notes are right, and that you can kind of remember them. But remembrance at this point isn't the key factor. It's just getting those mechanics of the action right. So what's the parallel with Photoshop? You're trying to learn a skill in Photoshop on how to, even say crop an image, or crop an image and then grade an image. We'll start with the cropping, practice cropping, getting your cropping right, adjusting your cropping, trying the different grades, practicing grading, practicing moving the controls, seeing what happens until you get the mechanics of the action right. you're writing. Okay, writing might be a little bit different. You know, you probably have the mechanics of writing from an early age because, you know, most of us hopefully are fortunate enough to be able to write. We've learnt those mechanics of the process. But if you're trying to write a book, you need to practice writing that book. So how do you do it? You just practice writing sentences, practice writing paragraphs. And stage 2 is probably one of the most important aspects of this. Now, we've been practicing our mechanical activity. We've got the mechanics down. We are understanding the mechanics of the exercise, the piece of music, the skill that we are trying to learn. The next thing is to record it. Record as you are practicing. Now, from a guitar point of view, that would be, you know, put a little recorder in the room, even use your phone, record it. If you're writing, obviously, you've got a record because you're writing it out. If you are doing photography, you've got a record because you've taken a picture. If you're doing accountancy, you've produced the table that you're going to work from and you've got the results. You've got a record. So stage 1 is practice, perform. Stage 2 is record. Record the activity that you are doing. Why is that important? Because when you record something, it gives you the opportunity to look back at what you've done and analyze. And that takes us to stage 3, because stage 3 is analysis. And that is the most important part of this whole process. So we've practiced something. We've got the mechanics right. We're working on the mechanics. We record it and then we analyze. We spend time in our practice regime looking back at what we've done. So if you are a writer, you don't just write at the end of the day, start again the next day. You need to go back. You need to review. You need to analyze what you've done. And that is where the learning takes part. From the guitar example, when you listen back to what you've done, you can analyze, oh, I didn't quite play that right. I didn't do that right. That isn't how I wanted it to be. That's not exactly what I was supposed to play. That's the nub of this whole exercise, is you focus in then on the bits which you aren't happy with, and then you go back and you edit, you reaffirm the part, you practice in, you zone in on those bits that you've got wrong. You practice, you are practicing getting better at those smaller bits. The other point of this is when you focus in on those smaller bits that you're doing wrong, you kind of actually start to lose some of the tension and anxiety about the other bits, because you think, oh, I did that okay. I listened back to it. I get the confidence. It helps you build your confidence when you listen back and go, actually, out of that 8 bars of music, I only played a couple of notes wrong. I'm going to go back in and focus on those notes and get those right. But, I played that okay. I've got my confidence. I don't need to keep practicing these bits. Or your brain is telling you, oh, you're not very good at it. You need, because you've messed up a little bit. Somewhere, your brain's saying, okay, I've listened back. I've done a pretty good job. I'm not too bad at that. Okay, there's a few areas I need to improve on, but overall, I've done a great job. Well done, me. Self pat on the back. You're giving yourself a little pat on the back, and it's helping with your confidence. And when you get your confidence, that's where you start to need less practicing time with this particular activity. Again, if you take it to a language idea, when you feel that you've had a conversation with someone and you've done quite well, you give yourself a little kind of virtue. I did all right there. I got across what I wanted to do. I feel my confidence building. Maybe I didn't say those words correctly, and actually I wanted to say something else, but I didn't quite know how. But I got the whole gist over. I'm doing quite well. And then I can go back and focus on the few words that I got wrong and the next sentence that I need to work on that I want to throw into conversation. As I said, this method is applicable to all disciplines, all skills. You zone in on where you made some mistakes or you weren't quite happy with what was going on. And you can only do that if you go back and analyze and if you go back and record what you're doing. As I said, from a guitar perspective, it's kind of uncommon thing to do to record your practice session. But if you're doing book writing or photography, you've got a record of what you're doing. And it's really important then to take some time and then come back and reflect back, analyze and see what it is that you need to do. Also, this gives you an opportunity when you become stuck with something to ask someone for help, to go onto YouTube to find that help, because it gives you a specific question, a specific target, rather than aimlessly practicing something, making it wrong and not knowing where to go, not knowing where to go next to develop. So let me just recap those 3 ideas. First of all, practice, mechanical practice, doing the task, doing the thing. playing the guitar, playing the piece, writing your story, writing some paragraphs, taking the photograph, framing the photograph, building the table, building your business, starting your business, looking at advertising, working with Facebook marketing. Small chunks, practice working with Facebook marketing. You're going to get it wrong, but it's only by doing it and then going back and analyzing it, you can see where you went wrong, recording it and analyzing it. The same with audio engineering. You want to be a mix engineer? Practice. Take a song, mix it, practice mixing it, try change things, analyze it, go back, listen. Okay, that snare drum doesn't sound exactly how I want it to sound. I can go back in and then fix that. I'm analyzing, I'm breaking it down into smaller chunks. I'm practicing, I am developing, I am growing with my skill. And when you do that, then you will find the other areas that you want to get more information on, move into further, go into, delve into deeper. So alongside this 3-step practicing routine, the next thing as well is, this is a kind of side to this, is to make sure that it becomes habit forming, that you practice every day. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you want to be, wherever you want to take your business, you need to do it every day. And if any of my students are listening to this, you know my old adage is 10 minutes. You just need to do 10 minutes every day. Whatever it is, practicing guitar, learning the piano, learning to write a book, writing your book, developing your business, thinking about your career, changing your career. You've just got to do it every single day, and you've got to turn up every day and do that 10 minutes. Get that 10 minutes done as almost a ritual, just like cleaning your teeth, and you will develop so much faster. And this is me telling myself this because I've been quite guilty in the last year or so. I've been a bit slack about this, and I just have to keep waking up. It's find myself 10 minutes to practice the things that I need to practice. I'm trying to work on a piece at the moment. I just need to every day just go and do that 10 minutes, practice it, and it will get done quicker. I've just finished reading a book, because one of the things I wanted to do this year was read more books, and it became really hard. It's so easy to get sucked into checking your phone and doing all these things that actually just 10 minutes reading a book, and I got through the book. I finished it rather than trying to do epic amounts and not really making any progress. 10 minutes, okay, it took a long time to get through the book, but I did it, and it feels like a sense of achievement, and I want to do it more. It becomes habit forming. There is how to practice and how to develop at your skill. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on this. Please do drop us a line at the Facebook group, There Is Another Way podcast, or drop me an email. Drop me a meal, okay, if you want to. Drop me an email at neil@spencerbruce.com. And all it is left for me to say is I hope you have a great week. I hope you get practicing and developing whatever skill it is you want to develop. I've been Brucey, and I will catch you later.